Good evening, everybody. It's 9:30 on the East Coast, 6:30 on the West Coast. On a Monday, it must be time for your weekly Calamity Jane live stream. James, how are you doing this evening? I didn't have an adjective or anything this time.
I know. I was like, it kind of threw, yeah, it threw me off. I was like, wait, he didn't add a summary or spring or whatever. It's all business today for you.
Yeah, it's just so straight up. Yeah, just nothing but business.
Yeah. So on my side, it's terrific evening. I'm doing just dandy. Been ready to do some animation and hang out with you and talk whatever comes to mind while we do that. How about things on your side?
Things are going well. Had an Easter party with some friends yesterday, and I'm feeling the pain a little bit, but it was a good time. Neither one of my roommate nor I are religious, and we thought, well, what a perfect opportunity to throw a party. let's do an Easter party because neither one of us are religious. And so we did, and I dressed up as zombie Jesus, and we had a few other people come in with costumes. It was a lot of fun. It was a good party. I think we throw pretty good house parties at my place. So,
of all the texts that you've ever sent me, by far the creepiest ones were sent to me today with your costume. So,
yeah.
Your costume is can pretty much be the talk of the room, being creepy.
Yeah, the funny part is I wasn't trying to be creepy, which is why I went with the silly green paint. And
yeah, it's funny on the photos. It looks like you're on a set of some sort, ready to do zombie stuff.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, but it was fun. I mean, I had a good time. I had fun putting on the makeup, and I bought a long brown wig and a cheapo. I think the wig actually cost as much as the entire Jesus costume. But that's fine. I mean, the Jesus costume is like a rope, a tunic, and a shawl, right? I mean, it's not much. But no, I mean, it was a good time. I went to bed pretty late yesterday, and I'm a little hungover today, but it's not beating down the door. So, but we're ready to go.
It won't interfere with us geeking out about something. That's for sure.
Probably not, unless I just fall asleep, which is a risk.
Oh man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But I think we're safe. I don't think that's going to happen. So I think we're all clear. I think we're in the clear.
Cool. Well,
so what are we working on tonight?
Let me share my screen, and we'll get into something here. All right. When we last left off, I'll kind of scroll back a little bit, but I'm going to borrow some assets from a scene I worked on last week, which was right here. So Calamity scrambles up the porch, gets ready for the Warhog to do a charge. She's like looking around. Oh no! There's swinging stuff around. There's a rocking chair bench, and she swings and hides behind the rocking chair as her defense. So I will borrow this pose here, and I will draw the remaining pose for this one, and maybe do a couple in betweens tonight. Depending on how far we get. But yeah, that's where I'm at for tonight's stream.
All right, lovely. I love it.
It's funny. Sometimes I don't get a chance to always look over to see kind of if you're emoting or you're preparing something, but you would look like you were deep in thought as you're watching this thing. Is it because you have something in mind, or?
No, I was just enjoying watching the art. Right. That's all. I was just like enjoying myself.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, it was. There was
I was like, oh man,
no subtext. No. I wasn't gonna like drop a bomb on you. It's like, you know what? I actually think she'd be better as a person.
No. But sometimes, it's funny because like I like getting because as the writing department, it's kind of I like to hear different perspectives, or if the thing was successful, like when you're doing some sort of art thing, and then like we kind of talk about stuff, we talk about design, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like I was like, oh man, maybe Eric's got something where he's thinking about the shot or something like that, or the scene. But okay, cool.
No, I was actually also thinking. It's been a while, obviously, since we looked at this scene, and I had for a moment forgotten how this scene plays out. And when I remembered like what happens, I'm like, oh, that's actually really clever.
No, it's, again, a testament to the. We're going to self-pat ourselves a little bit, but yeah, the writing department did a great. This is a fun sequence. I love this sequence.
Yeah.
There's a couple of moments, like, even in the bar. I don't know. It's hard to. I know. I guess we are self-patting our, backs a little bit, but the bar scene has some memorable moments. This is a memorable moment, so there's plenty to go around, and we're not even in Act Three yet, which has
Which
some
is
fun, cool moments too.
yeah, which is just a big giant action montage, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. So, but anyways, yeah. So I'll be working on that. So I already have one pose kind of done, and I'm going to do this little hunched over pose here.
Okay,
So this
okay,
is a brand new pose. So you can see like I have a rocking chair here and stuff like that. I'm probably going to make this in 3D,
okay.
but I'm going to still draw pretty much the entirety of Calamity Jane hunched over as a full pose, and then just kind of I'll block in the rocking chair later.
Now,
So yes, so
we talked about this in the past with the 3D stuff. Do you plan on using a toon shader of some sort, and then are you going to
yeah.
render these out as individual props on different layers? Like, will you render the chair out from this perspective, and then render the porch and everything out as a separate layer, and then just composite everything
Yeah.
together in post?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, yeah, yeah. When I get to that point where we're in what I would consider mid-production, probably three-fourths production, that's when I start layering in the background elements and the 3D elements.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you'll even notice here, I'll be using the same chair, but in this scene here with the rocking chair, it's gonna be in 3D, so we'll see a little bit more drawings of it, kind of going back and forth, and then I'll be using that same asset here,
Mm-hmm.
and then she'll hide behind it. And same with the bench. The bench will be the same, being this swinging bench here will be a 3D asset. And I'm just going to render out like actual 2D PNG images, and I'll just
Mm-hmm.
layer them in.
So can
And
you
then
convert?
yeah.
So you'll render out that stuff. You'll export it as a PNG. Do PNGs work well as vector graphics? Can you export them in such a way that they're useful as vector graphics, or are you going to be locked into a particular size at that point? So you know what I'm saying? So the image doesn't break
Yeah,
down as it gets pixelated and aliased.
yeah, yeah. So the thing about, wow, really getting in the weeds.
Hey, why not? Let's do it. Let's do
Yeah.
it. I'm
So
curious, and if people don't like it, well, they can sit and learn something. They should
they
get
can fall
curious.
asleep.
Yeah,
If they have a
exactly.
hangover and they need to fall asleep, this is a great time to do it.
Yeah.
But between you, like for us though, yeah, this is fun stuff to geek about as well. So I'm going to be using PNG format one because you can render PNG and have a transparent background behind
Yeah.
anything, so you can layer anything you want, composite versus a JPEG. Also JPEG, and maybe we'll see comments that'll say something different or whatever, but JPEGs are rasterized, like they
Yeah.
actually are. You'll see that actually the artifact thing that you see with scaling and stuff like that.
Yep.
Where PNG is like a lossless format, and I
Okay.
wish I could explain it better than that. But for PNG, for some reason, you can scale it up and down, and it's a little bit more forgiving with letting you do stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I do know
So
that you can only go so far before it starts
yes,
breaking down.
yep,
But
yeah,
because I was working on a trailer for the game a video game that I'm actually working on professionally. I went back to
hmm
the games industry, if anybody who's watching this didn't know. And I was putting together a trailer, and our game has a lot of pixel art in it, and I needed to zoom in on assets. And you can go in for a pretty decent way, but the assets that we're using, the native resolution was like 32 by 32. So they were very small. And when you're blowing them up
hmm
800x to fill the
yep,
screen, then they're not going to hold together. So,
yep, yep. You
and
have to
it's,
actually re-render a new
yeah,
batch of some sort. Yeah.
yeah, you have to render them at a higher resolution using square pixels of the same ratio as
Yep.
32 by
hmm
32, basically.
And then you can, yep,
And then you can
yeah.
tweak it. But, obviously that was just a lot of extra work. And it is interesting. I did research on a bunch of other 2D games. And honestly, they just go fuck it and just let the
Yeah,
asset
let
break
it
down
just.
a little bit. Yeah.
So in our approach, for our purposes, I'll be rendering the rocking chair at this size, so it's going to be pretty huge.
Pretty
So
huge.
that
Yeah.
way, I can get away with making it smaller, and it shouldn't show artifacting. But if you go the other
Right.
way, if you make it small and you go big, yes, you're gonna definitely see the artifacting, which is
Okay.
what you saw.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah. So for us though, we're going the opposite way. I'm gonna, yeah, because I've dealt with that myself in games and animation.
Right. And that
So
doesn't
I always render,
cause. I'm sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead.
and so rendering it bigger will give you a little bit more leeway when you go smaller.
Okay.
So render as big as you can for every shot that's justifying it,
Yeah.
and then string it down. But in games, it's different because you're using assets that are meant to be on the screen, taking up memory, taking up RAM, and so you want stuff to be small as possible.
Right, right.
So it's a bit you have to like with cartoons or traditional animation or whatever. You could rendering big, not an issue because as long as your computer can process it and you can kind of see it, and then you can shrink it down, you're good. But with games, it's real time.
Do you get any? I'm forgetting the technical term, but sometimes as you scale things down and it re-renders the pixels, you'll get like line bleeds and things will look. I guess alias is the right word, but like as they re-render the lines and things of that nature, that doesn't look quite right. Do you get that a lot when you're dealing with scaling down a PNG from a high resolution, or does it hold up pretty well?
We will find out in this episode. I mean, when we're making this episode, but I haven't yet to really encounter that with PNGs.
Okay. All right,
JPEGs. I saw a lot of weird artifacting all the time, and I couldn't tell if it was the graphics processor having an issue with it, and then it was just because. But then if you render it out officially through Premiere or Adobe, Adobe After Effects, you see the final product and you watch it on the machine, no issue.
Right.
And especially when it's rendered as MP4. But when you're trying to real time watch it, sometimes you will see this weird artifact and tearing. Sometimes I call it graphical tearing, whatever. And so then you start thinking, well, oh no, the final picture is going to be ruined. So what am I going to do? But then you're just reacting to RAM from your machine, your video card RAM or the processor, and so it isn't a big deal. But that's the fun of working with computers, because you kind of have these weird,
different challenges. It's with Premiere, because they're doing sort of the real time preview, so it's like kind of pseudo rendering. Things tend to be a little bit lower resolution, and that's why, like, if things get really weird, I'll just force it to do a full render out, and then once it does that, then that little bar on the top of your timeline turns green. Then you actually get to see things as they will, what it'll look like when you export it.
Yeah.
Okay, that was interesting. Sorry, that was a complete aside.
It's worth.
I thought it was interesting.
We should definitely bookmark this conversation for when I do that rocking chair, and we'll I'll try to we'll try to do a stream with it where I'll put it in big and put it in small and work with this. So we'll bookmark this scene for a future stream when I get around to making that rocking chair.
Yeah, we'll definitely come back to it. So another question then. So why the rocking chair in 3D? Because you've done other props in 2D, but the rocking chair you want to do in 3D?
Yeah, the reason why is right here. It's really subtle, but see how it's rotating back and forth, but it's just one flat graphic. I actually want to have a little bit of three-dimensionality to it while it's rocking back and forth.
I see.
And that's why I'm going to go 3D. And same thing with this hanging bench here. Same thing. It's not like, see how it's swinging, but it's really just a flat thing to be skewed.
Right.
Well, for animatic purposes, great. But for final animation, I actually want to actually have the impact of the swinging bench. You see different dimensions of it and dimensionality to it when it's getting hit and stuff. So, so this is why I am doing 3D for the chair.
That makes perfect sense. Well, go ahead. Oh, no, please.
I was going to say, okay, well, meanwhile, I'm still waiting on Helldivers 2 to update their patch, so I still can't, I'm completely just getting off the path of talking shop.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have not heard that the bug has been fixed yet.
No,
I was talking to a friend of mine who said that he accepted a friend request from a PC player the other day. But given how big a problem this is, I've got to believe that you would see it all over the interwebs if it had been fixed. So I don't know. I played Helldivers one time today and turned it off out of frustration. I don't know.
Why is that?
I was playing on one of the higher difficulty levels. So, there's an expectation that there's going to be a lot of enemies, but I don't know what happened. I don't know if the game bugged or if the RNG just completely hosed us or what, but there were so many enemies spawning nonstop that it was actually impossible to win the mission. There was no way to win the mission. There are these mega big monster tanks that come down and they
Uh-huh.
take 1,000,000 hits to kill. There were so many of them. They were literally intersecting with each other. They didn't.
What?
There was not enough geometry. There was not enough topography on the ground to support all of the tanks, and so they were actually intersecting each other, breaking collision because there wasn't enough real estate for all of the monsters that were on the map, right? And the whole squad, we were like, well, I don't know what you were supposed to do there, right? And these weren't, none of these kids were greenhorns. I mean, everybody, I was the lowest level at 23 or something like that. And everybody else was in the 30s. There was one guy who was in the 40s, and we're all like, I don't know what the game wanted us to do there, right? And so I don't have any insight into the inner workings on how the RNG works on Helldivers 2, because there is a certain amount of randomness about like how many enemies spawn, where they spawn, what their frequency is. And for whatever reason, we attempted this mission, and it was just not fun. I finished the mission, and I said to the group I was playing with, I'm like, hey guys, that was unfun, and I think I need to take a break. And they were like, yeah, totally get it. And I turned the game off. It was the first time I have not had fun playing Helldivers, and it was just because it was so... whatever that mission was, it was so fundamentally broken that it was just like, nope, I need a break from this.
Well, there's two first question I got is Helldivers 2 considered games as a service? That whole sexy term that a lot of game companies love to do now and chase after. Do you consider this? Do you consider Helldivers that kind of a game?
It dips its toe in it, but it's
Yeah.
not. It's not like, say, a Suicide Squad or any of the things that Warner Brothers and Ubisoft have been so horribly guilty of in the last couple of years. There is a premium currency that you can purchase with real world money, but there's at one time there's only ever a... So it has a season pass the way games like Fortnite and Rocket League and et al. Have. One of them is like the main progression component. It doesn't go away. It doesn't expire. You get it for free, right? And you can just work towards completing that however you want using the freely earned currency in the game called war bonds, right? That you are awarded at the end of every mission. And so those you just play the game, and you naturally are going to get those war bonds, and then you can unlock all that content. There's a exclusive season pass that you get if you buy the collector's edition, that you only get if you buy the collector's edition, which is fine. That's not games as a service. That's a pre-order bonus or a collector's edition bonus. And then they have an occasionally rotating premium pass that you can only unlock using the premium currency. And the premium currency is what you spend real money on. Once you unlock those passes, though, it appears that you have them in perpetuity, right? Like in Fortnite, the pass has an expiration date, and you have to unlock all of the content as before the expiration date. And you can either do it.
Keep it.
Yeah, you get to keep it if you unlock it, but it's almost impossible to buy the premium pass and then just unlock all of the content before the expiration date. It's really, in games like Fortnite, it's really intended for you to spend money on top of buying the battle pass. So it's like layers upon layers of spends.
Yeah.
And to this point, Helldivers doesn't have anything like that. And so, and they're not cycling those passes very often. And so, like, it's not hard to complete them. And on top of that, you get super credits, is what they're called in game, the premium currency. You get those for free by unlocking them in other war passes and by just finding them on the game maps. Like, I've got the current premium war pass right now, and I didn't buy it. I didn't spend any money on it. because the game gave me enough premium currency over the time that I played that I could just use that premium currency, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't. It uses some design elements of the free to play model, but it doesn't really feel like a free to or not a free to play. The games as a service model, but it doesn't really feel like it. I bought the base game because I wasn't sure I was going to like it. Loved it. Immediately turned around and spent the money on the collector's edition upgrade. Mm-hmm. And then that's the only real world money I have spent on the game to this point, right?
So the reason why I'm asking about this games as a service thing is especially with what you just talked about, how you're not having fun with it because of. It sounds to me like it's either poor level design, so it's on the designers of that level or whoever's in charge, or it's QA and they didn't in that game that level was not tested well enough. And that tells me, is it because if it's a games as a service, shouldn't they have a budget to be doing that and knowing that that's an issue? Or was it just a random thing that just happened to you? But the fact that it even happened at all, it just kind of it sounds weird. It just sounds odd to me. You know?
I'd have to play that mission again to see if it happened again.
Mm-hmm.
I have done similar missions in the past where you just get murdered and you're like, it's hard to keep up. And then you do the same mission again and it's like, oh, this was a breeze, right? I suspect, based on my experience, that it's just an RNG thing. Like it's a random number generator thing, and we just got completely hosed, right? I mean, it happens when you're doing that kind of thing. All right. That being said, it could have been intentional, and in which case I feel like if it was intentional, they went too far, pure and simple.
Yeah,
on that
sounds
one.
like.
But I only tried the mission once and then logged off because I was just too overwhelmed. So I'd have to, it was so over the top. It was so unplayable. Usually I play Helldivers and I'll play it at night and I have trouble getting to sleep because there's so much adrenaline running through my system because it's like you barely complete the mission, but you do it and it's exciting. And this was so overwhelming that I was just bored. I was just waiting for it to end, right?
Oh man! Wow, it went south that fast.
Yeah.
During the level where you were just,
and
that's not good.
And it doesn't help. So there's right now there's two different types of enemies to fight in the game. There's bugs and robots.
And robots, right? Yeah.
And the bugs are great. Everybody loves fighting the bugs. Everybody hates fighting the robots, and I think I know why. Because the robots, for the most part, die just about as fast as the insects do. The difference is that the insects are all squishy and crunchy, and as you shoot them, like pieces fall off of them, and you feel like you're working towards defeating them. You see, it's almost like you see their HP depleting in front of them, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The robots, there's almost no jibbing. There's no deformation. There's no damage. There's no visual damage on any of them. You just shoot them until they eventually fall over. They're just boring to fight because you get zero feedback on if you're doing it successfully, right?
There's no sparks that come off when you're blasting and stuff like that.
There are, but it doesn't really.
It's not satisfying.
It's not satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is that generally speaking, the robots have more armor defense, and so a lot of the guns that people like using to fight the bugs aren't as effective against the robots. And so and there's like light, medium, and heavy armor, and different guns penetrate at different armor depths and that kind of thing. And people are having trouble finding loadouts that are particularly effective against them. I mean, I've encountered this too. I hate fighting the robots. I much prefer to fight the bugs. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel satisfying to fight them because you get the indicator that your bullets are glancing off their armor way more, I feel like, than you get that message when fighting the bugs. The way the bugs move, the way they jib and crack and crinkle and squish, it's just so much more satisfying than the robots who don't really. I mean, like, and how do they, right? Like, one of the robots is a giant tank, That's it. It's
Yeah.
4 moving parts: the 2 treads, the body, and the turret. Right. And so there's nothing to really react against until it blows up. And because there's no like HP meters or anything like that, you can't really get any feedback that you're making progress on them because there's so little visual indication that you are making progress, right? And it's interesting to me that they got it so right with the bugs and they got it so wrong with the robots. I mean, I know I kill a lot of the damn things because you get to the end of a mission and it gives you your kill counts and it's in the hundreds every time, right? But it doesn't feel like you're killing that many, right? It feels like you're not killing anything. And I think that's the reason why people aren't enjoying fighting the robots.
And it sounds like this level that you had your burnout on was a robot level.
It
Earlier,
was a
right?
robot. It was a robot level. Yeah.
So that's a double whammy. That RNG with robots, that's a recipe for
that's basically what it boiled down to. And so I'm like, okay, it's just not happening tonight. So I turned the game off, right? And I'll go back and try it again, and hopefully it won't have that kind of thing happen again. But we'll see. The one thing I hope that they do, and it would take a pretty significant overhaul, but just making fighting robots more entertaining visually. I mean, that's really the big difference for me, is they're not as fun to fight as you look at them, right? It's not that they're... I mean, like, I feel like the tank is a lot harder than most of the bug enemies, but I mean, we're talking degrees here. It's just the robots aren't as fun to fight from a standpoint of it's not as fun to look at it while you're fighting, right? It just bullets ding off of metal and then eventually they blow up and that's it. There's no feedback. There's no messaging of progress. It's just you shoot until it stops moving and that's your only indication that you're winning, right? The only exception are the really, really low-level, weak robots that are just sort of the cannon fodder robots. Those are great. Like, their arms fall off, their legs fall off, oil spills everywhere. It's really fun to shoot those. But the heavy monsters, the armored ones, they don't react to being shot, right? It's so boring to fight them because of just the way that they visually were implemented. And now I'm just talking in loops, but I don't really know, short of completely redoing a lot of those animation systems and adding in bullet reactions, adding in more effects to indicate that you are making progress on them, like, deformation on the armor plating or something along those lines. I just don't know how you would fix it. There's just not a solution, an easy solution to making the robots more fun to fight, pure and simple, in my opinion. Because it's not a matter of how much hit points they have. It's not a matter of, because people will discover what the right loadout is to fight robots, right? But robots will never be fun to fight because they're not fun to fight, pure and simple. Yeah. They're not any more difficult than bugs. They're just not fun.
So I only played, again, I'm still waiting for that patch, so I haven't really played it that much, and I'll just kind of ride on the coattails of your leveling and try to play games and try to catch up somewhat. I'll just play it to enjoy it. But the 2 hours I played it, I ran to one robot level, and it was the hardest one. I remember that. And I was kind of confused. I don't remember, like, when you're playing the game, you're firing up for the first time, it's all about fighting bugs. And all of a sudden, then robots show up. And I didn't understand there's no I felt like I missed the context. Why are there Terminator robots now? Like,
so
I didn't really care that much about the story. I don't play the game for the story, but it was kind of fun to have all this kind of ramp up for, what's the movie? I'm trying to think.
Starship Troopers.
Yeah, Starship Troopers. Like you felt like you were in that movie, and all of a sudden then you're in Terminator, but like there's no propaganda to watch and go, oh, I hate the robots too, Like,
yeah. There is like robot propaganda if you stand on the ship long enough.
Okay.
there's like a TV that will occasionally show propaganda ads. But I think some of it has to do with the overarching lore of the Helldivers franchise.
Okay.
In the original game, there were 4 factions, and you only played as the humans, as far as I'm aware. But it was the bugs, the robots, and then this other alien species that looked sort of like the Protoss from StarCraft. Ooh, that was hard to get out. And the idea is that it's Super Earth versus these other 3 fronts, right? And then at the end of Helldivers 1, I guess the Illuminate, which were the Protoss surrogates, they were defeated, right? And so Helldivers 2 picks up with Super Earth trying to defeat the Terminids and the Automatons. But there is, like, it's pretty fun. There is this sort of, like, subtle storytelling going on where they're slowly hinting at the return of the Illuminate.
They'd be crazy not to have that extra action in there to kind of,
But it's, and it goes beyond that, though. Like, they have an active Instagram social media presence that gives daily updates on the war progress, right? And it just basically recounts, like, what the status is. And there's this actual moving, dynamic war map in the bridge of your ship that shows you where the front line currently is, right? And right now, if you look at it in the game, like, Super Earth is winning big time, right? Like, there's not many planets that haven't been completely liberated, but you can still scroll around the universe map, and there's all these sectors on the map, and all the planets in them right now say 100% liberated, right? I fully expect that if the game keeps up this current momentum that it's got, there's going to be some sort of, like, universal cataclysmic event where just everything kind of collapses, and there's just, everything is going to change, and they're going to completely change the nature of how the game plays. Because it's completely up to the designers, right? I mean, like, all these numbers are completely made up and arbitrary. There's no actual math behind all of it. It's just, some metagame designer who is like pulling the strings and having a good time with it. So it'll be interesting to see how the game develops over time, how it expands, how I've really been enjoying how they have been sort of organically creating this meta narrative that doesn't really come into play in the moment-to-moment gameplay, but I just appreciate the fact that there is this larger lore that exists outside of the moment-to-moment gameplay that, if you care to pay attention to, is actually really funny and interesting and creates a bit of dynamism to the game world, But if you don't care, you can just go and kill robots and bugs at your leisure, right? And So yeah. Anyway, I wasn't planning on going into a Helldivers deep dive tonight, but there you have it.
I mean, that's my fault. I mean, especially
no, it's fine.
Making you relive the game annoying recent episode for you, but
I mean, it happens, right? And like you when you're screwing around with random numbers, sometimes you roll a critical fail, right? And I kind of think that that's what happened here.
Cool.
So anyway, how are we coming on Calamity Jane hiding?
I think we're doing all right. I think I got the pose in there. I think we're in a good spot, actually. We'll kind of wrap up for tonight anyway. It might be a little bit of earlier stream, but so we got the initial pose, and then there's the new pose. So this chair obviously is not final, but it's just there. It's just there for me to kind of feel it out. But now I can move the parts around. Like, whenever the real chair comes in, I can kind of adjust stuff as I need to. And then, get the real one in there. But yeah, so you see in the animatic when I hide this, there's a little bit of a, like, in-flight animation of her going from here to here.
Right.
So I'll add a couple of in-betweens. So I'll add the squishiness. Maybe I'll do it next week. Maybe let's just see where we go for next week. Actually, now that we're wrapping up for next week, I will be traveling,
Okay.
and I will be in the Utah next week. But maybe we'll do a pre-recorded stream or something like that. But I'll be working on my iPad, so I might do some 3D next week actually. Anyway.
Okay.
But I won't be on my mothership rig right now. I'll be I'll be remotely doing it from another state for next week. So just
Okay.
a heads up.
That makes good sense. We'll if we decide to just go ahead and cancel it next week, we'll update to Facebook so everybody knows. But on that front, we'll call it for the evening. I mean, we got a good 35 minutes. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Anyway, you can head on over to calamityjane.rocks, and that'll take you to our Patreon site. Please consider joining us by becoming a subscriber and helping us make this cartoon a reality. You can also find us on Facebook and YouTube, which presumably you already have since you're watching the stream. We also have an Instagram page at Calamity Jane Salamander that you can check out. We update it and post fun behind-the-scenes stuff over there. So check all that stuff out. Otherwise, we're going to sign off for here, and we'll see you maybe next week, but at the worst 2 weeks from now. So good night, everybody. Stay safe out there.
Good night.